So, dear audience, welcome to the distinguished annual event, the Queen Rania Teacher Academy Forum 2023. Under the theme, Revitalizing the Learning Experience to Reignite Inspiration and Passion. I am Mohammed Al-Najjar, teacher educator in the Academy. We would like to thank you all for your attending this forum and welcome you. Established in 2009, the Queen Rania Teacher Academy is a non-profit institution that embraces the vision of Her Majesty Queen Rania Al Abdullah to enhance the quality of education by empowering teachers with necessary skills. QRTA provides innovative and high-quality professional development programs in Jordan and the Arab world. QRTA effectively contributes to serving the educators community, reflecting its commitment to education development and enhancing educators' skills through a range of specialized initiatives. This includes opportunities for continuous learning and advanced training for teachers and school leaders. As part of these initiatives, QRTA hosts an annual forum, bringing together distinguished educators from around the world to exchange their experiences and stimulate innovation in the field of education. This year, our forum stands out with dedicated workshops led by educators for educators. These workshops aim to enhance learners' knowledge and equip teachers with tools and skills to make the students' learning experience more exciting and engaging. They also aim to provide students with means to explore the world, interact with international issues, and maintain a continuous curiosity for research and questioning. Before the start of today's workshop, we would like to remind you that you can obtain a certificate of attendance. We look forward to your participation in the feedback survey, which will be shared with you before the end of the workshop. Thank you for your cooperation and valuable presence. Please now allow me to introduce Dr. Aline Abbasian, a lecturer at the University of Central Florida. Dear Aline, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Muhammad. I appreciate the introduction and I appreciate this opportunity to be with everyone. I know we have about 60 participants in the room, so I appreciate everyone being here. It's great to spend my morning. I know it's your afternoon. In Florida, it is about 7 o'clock in the morning, so I had an early start to my day and I'm very excited to be here with you. Like Muhammad mentioned, my name is Aline Abbasian. I have my PhD in education with a mathematics education focus. And currently I am a lecturer at the University of Central Florida. Just a little bit of my background. I was born and raised in Lebanon. So I do speak Arabic. I got all of my degrees here in the United States. So that's why I prefer to do my presentations in English, but I do understand Arabic. I do read Arabic. So if you have questions for me, feel free to ask them in either English or Arabic. I should understand it, but I will most likely answer in English just because that's the language I'm comfortable with when it comes to technical terms in education. So again, thank you all for coming today. I'm looking forward to spending the next hour and a half or so with you, discussing some good strategies to engage our students in the classroom. So the theme that I want us to talk about today, the theme of my presentation, is going to revolve around this quote, this famous quote about teaching. It's by Benjamin Franklin, and it says, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn." So as teachers, that's our goal. Our goal is to help our students learn whatever content that we are teaching. And so, like I said, the theme for our discussion today, the theme for the workshop is going to be, how do we help our students actually learn? And that has to involve them being part of the learning process. So before we get started with that, I would love to know where everyone is. I know right now we are on opposite side, at least I think we're on opposite sides of the world. I am in Orlando, Florida. Many of you may be on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, but I would love to know where you are currently. I will ask you, I know, thank you guys so much for sending it in chat. But what I'm going to have you do instead, if you have your phone next to you, go ahead and scan this QR code. If you are using your phone for this presentation, I'm going to send the link in chat. It's a Padlet link. So let me go ahead and send it to you real quick in chat. Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing. Again, it's great to see a diverse audience, and I'm very excited to, hear your different perspectives and, all of the wonderful, ways our students are probably learning the same way. We probably are facing the same challenges when it comes to our students, in this day and age, wanting or not wanting to participate in the classroom. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. Before we get started, I just wanted to present some of the goals that I have for our session for today. Today we are going to share some different strategies for creating an active learning community in our classrooms. We're going to discuss opportunities for students to form different connections in the classroom. And then lastly, we're going to examine practices to facilitate productive discussion when we're teaching. I like to really summarize all of these into this visual. We're going to start by talking about connections. Then we're going to move on to productive discussions. And then we're going to summarize everything with how does this develop or create active learning communities. Whenever I talk to teachers, like Muhammad introduced me earlier, he said, I'm a lecturer at the University of Central Florida. My day-to-day job is working with teachers and helping them develop, an active learning community in their classrooms, so their students are involved and they are learning, in the classroom. But sometimes we have to go back a few steps. It doesn't really just start, this is how you create an active learning environment or active learning community. Before we get there, there are steps, and it all starts with forming connections. And that's the first thing we are going to talk about, is how do we form connections with our students so they feel comfortable enough to participate in the discussions that we have with them in the classroom. And then we're going to move on to, well, how does this help create an active learning community? So we'll start with connections. As you may have noticed, I started our discussion with a general question on Padlet. And I did that on purpose because for me to be able to connect with you, I wanted us to start off, kind of on the same level playing field of where are we all located? It wasn't, hopefully it wasn't too hard for you to answer this question. I noticed everybody started answering right away, and that is the key. So you want to start, if you want your students to have those conversations and talk in the classroom, productive talk, of course, we have to start them talking about something a little easy, and we build on that to get them to talk about the content that we are teaching. One way, one application that helps us do this is Padlet, which is what I shared with you at the beginning of this workshop, is the quick link. So if you have never used Padlet before, I just wanted to give a quick introduction to what Padlet is. Padlet is a digital notice board. It's a space for teachers and students to share ideas quickly and effectively. And students can also put videos, images, documents, audio, and it's very collaborative. So if you are looking for something in your classroom to help you make it more collaborative, this might be a helpful application for you. So with that said, I'm gonna quickly, this was Padlet. I know, Khalida, you asked about what is Padlet. We started this workshop with talking about, I asked everyone where they are located, and everyone shared their location via Padlet, which is this application that we're talking about. So with that, yes, I'm going to share with you how to create a Padlet. Padlet is free. They have, different plans, and some of them are paid, but I've been using Padlet for years and I've never paid for it. I always just keep the free version only gives you, I think, 5 Padlets, but you can always archive and create a new one, which is what I've been doing for years, for about 10 years now. So once you create your free account, and you log in, this is what it looks like. And it's very user-friendly. It's very easy to create this Padlet. You can go ahead and click Make a Padlet, and you will get all these options to show, sorry, I was just making sure I didn't have a question in chat. And you get to choose what kind of Padlet you want. You can have like an art showcase, a blog. That's the layout, the background that they will give you. Different activities, for the students, if you want to do a summary, brainstorming, which is great. Let's go ahead and click brainstorming. And then as soon as you click it, then you get to start, editing, everything from the title to the settings. So again, here is your title. You just click it, and let's say we want to call it again QRTA brainstorming session, right? So it's very, like I said, user-friendly. You can share a description, and you can see I like that they put a picture of the brain, but this shows this little icon goes up here, but you can choose any image. You can also upload if you have an image you want to use. You can draw it. I am terrible at drawing, so that is not something I have done before, because, I don't think that's something I would be proud of. But so like I said, you can change that. You can change the wallpaper, the background. You can, just like with everything, you can customize it. I've done, because I do teach mathematics, so sometimes I put like a math problem or a graph, and then that way students can talk about it. So you can customize the background to whatever you want it to be. The font, the size of the post, the format, how you would like the students to, when I'd created ours at the beginning, I clicked map. So that's why when I did it, this showed up, and it was a very interactive way of asking you guys where you're located. So that's, a little bit, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I wanted to give you a brief summary of how to create it. Because I know sometimes when I'm attending workshops, I really like what the presenters are doing. I'm like, I want to do that. And then I don't have much time to go explore it myself. But hopefully by seeing a little bit of how it's done, it will encourage you to maybe utilize this with your teaching, if that's something you're looking for. We created one together, so we are good. So like I mentioned earlier, before our goal for, as teachers, as a professor, my goal, anytime I'm working with students, my goal is that active learning community. I want my students to be part of the learning. But like I mentioned earlier, before we get there, we have to have opportunities for our students to form connections. So today I'm going to talk about 3 different ways of connecting and forming connections in the classroom. The first one is different opportunities for students to connect with you as the teacher. Then we're going to talk about different opportunities for students to connect with one another, and then students to connect with themselves and reflect on their own learning. So those 3 forms of connections, research has shown in education, are critical for students to be able to have those productive discussions with each other, with you, and that's what creates the active learning environment in the classroom. So opportunities for students to connect with you as their teacher. Those can take different forms. Those can be maybe a check-in survey. Maybe it can also look like a one-on-one or a small group meeting. And this can look something like this, some questions that I've asked my students when I'm, checking in to see how they are. It's a very simple, this is my favorite simple way of doing it. I just say, how are you? And your students will if they have that trust, they will share, how they're really doing. Something like, do you have access to all the materials that we need for our class? Do you have any questions or concerns about the class that we're teaching? And again, this can be in person and verbal. This can be on Padlet, where you can put the question and then students type in their answers. Or it can be, on a piece of paper and then students can write their answers. So this is very customizable to whatever you think works best in your classroom. And then the directions to students, when I do these types of questions, I just say, please answer the questions. And I tell them why I am asking this. I tell them, please answer so I get a sense of how I can support you as your teacher. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to have you do, I know I'm asking you to go to all these different websites. I hope you're okay with that. But when I was designing this, thinking, as I used to be a high school math teacher, and I always wanted to, look for all these different ways I can engage my students. And so I hope, I know a lot of you are familiar with these different softwares and websites that we're using. But if you're not, I hope this is helpful and you get ideas and you get inspired to use all these different softwares in your classroom. So here's the next one that I would love for us to explore together. It's called Nearpod. Have you all heard of it? So just let me know in chat if you've used Nearpod or if it's new to you. Yes or no? Have you used Nearpod or you have not? So mostly yes, we have a few no's. Some of you are saying it's new to you, new, no, and then a few yeses. All right, so that's great. For those of you that have used it, you get to, share maybe in chat what you like about it. If it's new to you, you get to explore it. So Nearpod is a website, but it's also an app you can download on your phone. I've always used the website. I've never downloaded the app. If you have your phones, if you would rather scan the QR code to join the specific Nearpod that I have for this presentation, I have the QR code here, but I will also put in chat if you are using your laptop or you want to use the browser, you can go ahead and type this in. It's join.nearpod.com, and then it's going to ask you for a code, and then the code for this is Z7HGW. Yes, you're Rasmiya, that's exactly when I started to use Nearpod as well. Rasmiya mentioned that during the epidemic, the COVID pandemic, is maybe when you started or learned about Nearpod. That's when I started to learn about all of these different technologies, because we had to be creative as teachers and think about ways we can engage our students when they're far away. But you know what? Even though we're back to being face-to-face, I still use these with my students because I'm sure you all relate. A lot of our students are glued to their cell phone, or they have a very, they're very attached to it. So I've noticed if I let them use, you know, their tablet or their phones for specific educational purposes, you know, like engaging and answering questions, they tend to be a lot more engaged. So, all right, let me get to Nearpod. Let me just quickly show you as a teacher, because I created this and technically I'm the teacher. And when you join and you put your name, it puts you as a student. So as a teacher, I have a list of everybody that joined. So just so you know from the teacher perspective how it looks, and that's how you know the students are doing, you know, what they're supposed to. If they're using their phone, I look here, are they really on it, or are they doing something else? Are they on Facebook? Are they on some, you know, random website? So this kind of tells you. And then the difference, as you may have noticed, some of it is red, some of it is black. If it's red, it's minimized. And then if it's black, you're on it, just so you know a little bit about the teacher perspective of this. So as a teacher, I can see the student list. And then we can create different types of questions. So this is the first question that I would like you to answer. And by the way, you can always hide your students' names, especially if you have this projected on the screen. There's a little button here. It looks like an eyeball. Oh yes, Rukaya, here it is how. So you go to join.nearpod. Let me just quickly put it for our friends that missed the code. Join.nearpod.com. And then it's going to ask you for a code. And then the code is Z7HGW. And I will also, to make it a little bit easier, I will put this code in, this link in chat, and it should take you straight to the website. Try this. Try this. I know admin, you sent the general code, general link that will ask for a code. So if the code isn't working for them, I think the link that I posted should take you straight to it. Sure, Shamsa. So the way you hide students' names, for me, it's on the bottom right corner. There is this little eyeball. I don't know if you can see it. So I click I click this to hide all the students' names, or if you want to unclick it, it shows all the students' names. And then if you as a teacher want to see the participants, you can click there and it shows, you know, the list of students' names. It's right next to it. Okay, so the question that you should see, of course. Oops, sorry. Oh, so I think it stopped allowing participants in because the cap for my free, I have the free version of Nearpod, but there is a paid version. The free version, I think it only allows 50 participants into the link. But then if you have the paid version, it allows more. So yes, Fatima, I think it's capped because I have 50 students or 50 participants in it right now. That's why it's not allowing people in. So I do apologize. I have the free version of it. So it only allows 50. So I do apologize that it's not letting you in. Okay. So the question that I posted was, how are you feeling today? If you know, if the scale was these dogs. So, you know, for me, to be honest with you, if I were going to choose one, I woke up very early this morning because like I said at the beginning, This started at 7 and I came to my office at the university. So I had to wake up very early. So I think for me, I would choose maybe 6. But I'm happy to be here. So I can also be, whatever one is the excited one, 7. I can go between 6 and 7. Okay. So again, to quickly come back to Nearpod, as a teacher, you will see, like I was saying earlier, the individual students' responses. But if you want a summary, and you can share the summary with the students, oops. You can see the percentages of your students that answered. So I have about 20% of you said 5. Okay, I will take this. It's not too upset. Now let's see how many people chose 8. I was a little worried. 8 looks a little angry. Okay, not too bad. 2%. Okay. We have 18% said 7, 12% said 4, and then we have a few from all of them. Okay. So thank you all for answering and participating. And I'm going to come back to this of why these types of questions, I know they may seem a little silly for us as, as adults, but they actually do help the students in opening up a little bit, so that way they answer the types of questions, the hard questions that you have for them in the classroom. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that after. So again, thank you for sharing. Let's go back. We'll come back to Nearpod, so don't close out of it yet, because I do have a few more questions on Nearpod for you to answer. So if you haven't used Nearpod before, all it is, it's basically a hybrid learning tool. Imagine it's like a PowerPoint, but you can send it to your students and they can answer questions. If you have questions for them, they answer it, and you have the data. It's like I use it as formative assessment tool. So I have all of their answers. I know who understands what. It's a great way to, also connect with your students. Fatima asked, is it similar to CurryPod? I am not familiar with CurryPod. So if somebody is familiar with CurryPod, maybe they will answer your question. I should write that down so I can explore it, Fatima. Just wrote it. So it's a hybrid learning tool. It's like imagine PowerPoint, but you can embed slides that are interactive. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you all the different tools they have, that you can use. They have, you can do games on it. You can do collaborative boards. Yes, I agree, Nermeen. Nermeen said Nearpod has the most applications combined. It's like Kahoot, Polls, Edpuzzle. It's even like Padlet. I agree. Yes. It combines multimedia learning with digital assessments. It allows teachers to create slide-based learning resources that are interactive for students. And like I said, I will I will show you different ways of creating these. Oh, thank you so much, Munir. So I absolutely respect and agree with that. So not a problem. So it's similar to CurePod. So yes, it is a little similar. So thank you all for answering each other on chat. I do appreciate that. Okay, so that was different ways you can have students connect with you with the check-in survey questions, with different scales that are, and notice it wasn't really content specific. So think of the Padlet we did at the beginning with the map. Think of the silly scale that we did now. How do we get students to connect with one another, to create that learning environment that we're talking about? Yes, Ibrahim. So Ibrahim asked a great question. Could you explain the meaning of hybrid learning? By hybrid learning, Ibrahim, I mean it's both online, it's digital, it's virtual, as well as in person. So, it's not completely, asynchronous. It's not completely online. It can be used to, like, you notice how I'm in control as a teacher of which question to ask you, and then you're answering virtually on your devices. So that's what I mean by hybrid, is it contains both a virtual aspect as well as the synchronous aspect that we have going on. So different ways or different opportunities for students to connect with one another. So this can happen, as simple as the beginning of the year introductions. And then throughout the year, we can have some non-academic related discussions. And, as a teacher, you get to choose however long you want to spend on those, how often you want to do it. And I will give you some examples of, Nearpod, as well as, what I've done in the classroom using just, nothing virtual, not a computer, or just, a paper and pencil. So if you still have Nearpod open, I would like you to go ahead and go back to Nearpod. As I mentioned earlier, I used to be a high school math teacher, and I still teach. My focus is specifically working with math teachers. So this is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite questions to ask my students, and I'm asking you all right now. So my question to you is: if you have a piece of paper in front of you, put an X, draw an X. And I want you to pay attention to how you drew your X. Did you draw down first or up first? Did you do both of them in the same direction? Did you do them in opposite directions? And when you have an answer, you can either put it in chat, or you can answer on Nearpod, because it should also be open on Nearpod. So I'll put up the image again. So you specifically, if I ask you to draw an X on your paper, how do you draw it? And I've done this with my students a lot to know there's even more ways. Some students can be very creative of how they draw their X's. But it's so interesting to me, because, who would have thought different people draw their X differently? But we all do. For me, I do it number 8, the way number 8 is shown. I know, at least in chat, I saw a few of you that draw it like me. So Wala draws it like me. Munder draws it like me. It's okay. If you don't draw it like me, I'm not too upset. Rasha draws, oh, okay. So Rasha draws it like me. Okay, and then we have, let me look at the data that I see on here. So it looks like 8 is pretty popular. 20% of people that answered did it like number 8. And then we have 20%. Oh, it just changed. Somebody answered on Newpad. Now 7 is in the lead. We have about 4% do it like number 3, and then the rest are different. Okay, so the reason I do something like this is, again, what I usually do after this is I have students talk about it, and then, they start discussing like, oh, that's so, I didn't know that there's all these ways of doing it, and then they start saying like, why do you do it this way? And usually I put this into, only within I don't let them spend more than 5 minutes talking about this. And again, the reason I do this is if students begin a class talking about something like this, as we begin as we begin teaching the content that we're teaching, whether it's, English, mathematics, Arabic, history, they already talked to each other. They already answered your question. So it becomes a lot easier for them to actually talk about the content that you're teaching. So research has shown time and time again that the very first time they talk in class is usually the hardest. So if you present a question that is easy to answer, it becomes a lot easier for them to be engaged in the classroom and answer the questions that you present to them and have those productive discussions like we want them to. Some other questions that I ask them so, they can, connect with one another. It can be something as using the first letter of your first or last name. Pick a word that starts with the same letter that describes you. For me, my first name and my last name start with the same letter, so it's A. So a word that maybe starts with A that describes me. It's really, I don't know, I can't really think of A words right now, but I'll keep thinking of it. Maybe by the end of this session, I can share it with you. What are some different study habits? Oh, that's a good one, Fatima. Thank you. Fatima said ambitious. Okay, I'll take that. Fatima said it, not me. So I don't want to sound too, confident. So I will use that word, Fatima. What are some study habits or tips that have helped you in the past that could help others in our class? This is a really good one, because students can share some really good studying habits with each other, and they tend to listen to each other more than listening to us tell them how to study. And then group works, sometimes I put them in groups and they don't know each other. So a task could be write down one thing everyone at the table has in common and one thing that makes each of you different. So some different suggestions, those I've done in my classes before, and they work really well. So those are tested and, they are for sure to get you some really good, talking points with your students. Okay. And again, I like to have these be not too academic. So sometimes I tell them, what is your favorite book that you've read? Your favorite TV show? Favorite movie? We do some of those check-in images like that. How do you draw an X? So these allow students to connect with one another in a controlled way, right? Because I'm presenting them with the question. They're talking about something that I have a little bit of control over. And it sets that foundation for when the actual content comes in, that they are ready to answer. And then the third way, if you remember with my little visual of how do we help them form connections with themselves? It's critical for students to reflect on their own learning. So how do we help them develop those metacognitive skills, that they're thinking about their own learning. So they're more responsible for their own learning. Like, did I understand this? What is hard for me? What is easy for me? What should I do to prepare for this test? What works, what doesn't work? So those skills, we have to help our students develop. If we don't practice with them, they were not going to develop them out of nowhere. They take practice for them to be developed. So a few things I've done in my classroom to help students develop these metacognitive skills where they're reflecting on their own learning. I like to break it down to 3 ways: at the beginning, during the unit, and then at the end of the unit. So at the beginning of a unit, before I start teaching, I say, it can be something on Padlet, it can be something on Nearpod, it can be in person where maybe they're using, a sticky note and they write it down and then they stick it to the board. And some of the questions I ask is, what do you know about this concept already? So if I'm teaching them, I don't know, squares and rectangles, what do you know about this concept already? And then what do you want to know? Okay, so again, it has them thinking. This is before we do anything. It gets them thinking about, you know, the content and the topic, and it gives me as a teacher a little bit of a background knowledge of, you know, where my students are. Now, during the unit, so now that I'm already teaching, right? Maybe exactly, Rahma, it's like a KWL, one of those charts. You got it. You got it. Absolutely. During the unit, so now that we started teaching, one helpful tool to help students, you know, continue developing those metacognitive skills are scales. Okay. So let's go back to Nearpod. So go ahead, if you have Nearpod open, go ahead and join me there. If you don't, it's okay. You can always answer me in chat. Okay. 1 minute. Okay. So when I say scale, this is what I mean. It's just a self-assessment scale. So it can be something like this, like on a scale from 1 to 4, how are we feeling about, you know, what we're talking about right now? So, you know, feel free to do that about some of the topics that we've discussed so far. So where are you right now about maybe some of the topics that we've discussed so far? So are you maybe 1 where even with help, I don't understand what you're talking about? Number 2, help me a little and maybe I think I get it. Number 3, I may need a little practice. Number 4, I need a challenge, or maybe I can help someone else understand it better. Okay, so feel free to answer here in chat or on Nearpod about, you know, how are we feeling on a scale from 1 to 4. Good. See, I see some 2s, I see some 3s. Wonderful. I love that. About a few more seconds to kind of reflect where you are. We have a 4. Nice. Okay. So I know if I have a few 4s, if I have a lot, you know, some things I can't answer, I'm gonna go to Nancy maybe. She can help me answer. Oh, 5. Okay. We're past the scale. Okay, and then on Nearpod, some of the data that I'm seeing, I have about 20% are at 3, 18% are at 4. Wonderful. So some of the 4s on Nearpod. Again, I might go to you for some help. And then we have a few 2s, and then we have 0 at 1. So I will take that as a teacher. I like those numbers. No, you're okay. I like to see the 5. Another scale that I really like to do with my students is a drawing scale. And again, at the in a little bit, in a few minutes, I'm going to show you how to create all these slides on Nearpod. My students love to use Nearpod, you know, other than just like multiple choice, let me click. You know, this kind of allows them to do something a little different. Where I give them this background and maybe they use the tools that they have to circle their answer. So if you are on Nearpod, I know right now, if you're on chat, it's a little bit hard to, you know, to do this, but feel free to look at the screen and kind of, we can go through where our colleagues on Nearpod are. So as a student, this is what they get. This is their, this is how it looks for them. This is the draw feature on Nearpod. They have all of these different tools at the bottom. They have a crayon, they have a highlighter. So in the directions, I said, please indicate on the given image how you are feeling about today's session so far. You can either type something, like you can say, I am not following, maybe, so you're here. Or maybe you can say, I don't know how to read it. Or maybe you can take the crayon and circle, like, I'm somewhere here in the middle. Or you can even use, there's these shape tools. If you, if you want a perfect circle and you can't get it with the crayon, you can click it and you can draw, where you are. And then you can always, delete the, sorry, it's right here. Make the background transparent. So different ways that allow students to tell you how they are doing during the lesson, so you know, if they get it or if they don't. I will try to send the link. I saw your suggestion, Munir. I will try to send the link, but we may have capped, it only allows 50, and I know there might be a little bit more than 50. We have 150 right now. So I do apologize. If you're not able to join me on Nearpod, it's because we maxed the number of participants on Nearpod. Okay, so this is how it looks as a student. As a teacher, this is what you get. Okay, so this is all of the answers that I received. And again, I have the students' names hidden. You can always, if I ever project this on the screen in the classroom, I always hide the students' names for privacy. I don't want to embarrass any of the students, especially for something like this. If a student is at red, I don't want them, I don't want the rest of the students to make them feel embarrassed. So I always hide the students' names. But if you're not projecting it anywhere, then it's fine. So you can kind of scroll. Somebody is being very creative. I like it, to kind of see some of the answers we got. Okay. So yeah, I see a lot of us are in the, between yellow and green. And again, I will take that. Just it tells me that maybe we're not too much, we don't have too many of the reds, so I think we're okay. So again, this was during the unit. I incorporate these types of questions, like these types of examples, the scales, maybe in the middle of a unit, or right after it ends, just so I can get a feeling of where the students are. And then another way we can help our students develop those metacognitive skills is at the end of a unit. So now that all the teaching is done, right? I want students to, again, take ownership of their learning, right? So they are responsible for their own learning. So I don't want the feedback to be just from me. I want them to think about it themselves. So some of the questions I ask them to kind of force them to have these reflections. Maybe, what was the most challenging part of this unit? What was your favorite part of this unit? What questions do you still have? Okay, so again, this forces them, and sometimes I ask this after they take the test. So again, the goal of this is to force them to take ownership of their own learning. And of course, it's helpful for me as a teacher to get that data, to get that information, so I can, improve my teaching. But I think this is also the goal of it, is to help students develop those reflection skills. And I like to, sometimes we focus too much on what was hard for you, what was difficult for you, but don't forget to also put some positive questions there that get students, happy when they're thinking about that. They learned, like, what was easy for you? What was your favorite part? Because it might surprise you, what they're thinking. These are some different samples that have been done. Again, it doesn't have to happen on Nearpod. I agree. I really like Rasmiya. I really like those positive questions. I try to balance it. So some student reflection samples, it doesn't have to be done on Padlet or Nearpod. I'm using those tools because we're not face to face. So I'm trying to, get your thoughts. I wish if we were face to face, we would be doing this on paper and pencil. I just want you to know this does not have to be done on software. Everything we're talking about, this can be done using paper and pencil or a board. You don't need all the technology tools that we're using in this session. So, some of the things that that I've done in my classroom, like I said, I teach mathematics. I help mathematics teachers in teaching. So, how did you grow as a mathematician today? Again, it's a pretty general, open-ended question, but it makes them think about the content that they're learning as well. And then I have specific questions like, what's a strategy? What's a math word you learned? What's a mistake you made that helped you, right? I know looking at the program for the forum, there's a lot of sessions about, the growth mindset. And this is something, how do we use our mistakes to help us? So, asking that and having them reflect on it. What did you do that challenged you? What did you notice, and how did it help you solve a math problem? Again, it's forcing the students to take responsibility for their learning, right? So as a teacher, you can do so much, but students also have to take that ownership and say, okay, I need to do something. I need to think about strategies that help me learn. I need to, think about if something was difficult or challenged me, what can I do to help myself? And they're not going to know how to do that if we don't guide them and give them the opportunity to do it in our class. So another way is I've done this week, I have achieved, and then using, a sticky note, like I said, they put their answers on the board. In my writing project, I want to, so this is, a writing one. And again, they post it themselves. This question is, what is the idea or thought that you'll share with someone else or keep thinking about? So after the session, if your parent, if your mom or dad asks you, what did you learn today? What would you say? And as a parent, as a mom, when I ask my daughter who's in grade 1, what did you learn today? Most of the time her answer is, I don't know, or I don't remember, or, it's, something very simple. So it's really important to have our students think about these things so they're able to put words into what was what they're learning. Can we, I know Malik asked me, can we get a copy of this PDF? Of course, I would. What I'll do is I don't know, Muhammad, I can send it to you. I don't know if there's a way of sharing this with the participants, but I don't mind personally. I don't know about how that works with the QRTA, but
maybe we can share the link, Eileen, if you have it in the drive before we end the
okay.
session.
Yep, I can do that. I can share with you, or I can even, what I'll do is I have this saved. I'll send it in chat as a file. That's a great idea. Thank you, Mohammed. Absolutely. Shamsa suggested exit tickets help as well. Yes. Oh my goodness. Exit tickets are great. So right before the class ends, just have them answer a question like this, and send it to them. Absolutely. So those are some, ways. Oh, I wanted to quickly do this on Nearpod. So I'm trying to model how to do this as a teacher. So how would this be done? And since we're not in person and we can't use sticky notes on the board, on Nearpod, if you are on Nearpod, this is a collaboration board, which is similar to Padlet. Tell me, what is your biggest takeaway so far from our workshop? And if you are on chat, feel free to, to send in your thoughts or your takeaways so far. So again, I'm hoping this is modeling how you can ask your students to reflect on their own thinking. So I'd like you to reflect on your own thinking so far. What is your biggest takeaway from our workshop so far? Munder, I'm gonna send the link again, but I don't know if it will work because, as I mentioned earlier, we have 150 participants and Nearpod only allows 50. So I do apologize if it's not letting you in. Yes, I agree, Rukaya. Sticky notes at the end of class. Dina, yeah, if it's not letting you in, we may have maxed the amount of participants. Yeah, so I have 50 participants in right now, and I have the free version of Nearpod, so it only allows 50. So I apologize, but feel free if you want to, send in your reflections here, feel free to send it directly to me or, share with the group. So I'm going to read some of the Nearpod responses. And again, as a teacher, you can show or hide students' answers. So I think for this one, I'm going to show just so I can, I hope I'm not making anyone embarrassed. Let's see. TA said the importance of feedback and reflection sheets. Haba said it's very interesting. Shamsa said Nearpod is my greatest takeaway and would like to use it constructively in my class. It's an interesting way to keep students engaged. Absolutely. Monia said engaging students in the learning via interactive strategies to give them space to connect, share thoughts, and reflect. Beautiful. Fatima said 2 tools to use and engage my students. The way I'm presenting, Yusuf mentioned the way I'm showing the app. Munir said, make our class more interactive. Ruza said feedback and reflection sheet and how we can connect with students and communicate. Ratan, I'm glad you're finding it engaging and inspiring. Someone there mentioned educational strategies to make the communication between students and teachers and feedback, absolutely, to make good plans. Great, thank you all so much for sharing some of your takeaways. And I know in chat we have a lot of really great takeaways. Wonderful, thank you. Okay. So you feel free to keep reflecting, whether in chat or on Nearpod. But I did want to, for those of you, since we have a few of you that said you have not used Nearpod before, I'd like us to take a few minutes and I'll do it on my screen so you all can see. If you haven't used Nearpod before, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to create one. Nearpod is also free. They have paid plans, but I don't use them. I just use the free version of everything. But as you can see, there are some limits, which is one of these limits is it only allows 50 participants. I usually don't have more than 50 students per session. So I don't really run into this problem. But if you do, that's something to think about. Okay. So let me quickly show you how to create a Nearpod. Actually, let me see if what lets me. Yeah, so this was the last slide. It might kick you out because I'm going to leave. So it says, do you want to leave the session? You can resume it later. Yes. So this is how it looks like for me. And I promise I use this so much. And as you can see from my shared screen, like for all of my classes that I teach, I have lots of classes and I use this often. So, I'm not just saying it for this workshop. So it's pretty easy to create. So once you create an account for free, you're not paying for it. This is the home screen. You can go ahead and click create. This is how you start, okay? And then you can do a video, an activity, or a lesson. I always do a lesson. That's how I started. okay? And then what I do is it will ask you what type of lesson what type of slide do you want? Do you just want a title slide? Do you want to create a slideshow? Are you putting in a PDF? So, you know, if you've created, you know, a slide deck for your lesson already, you can just upload it. And then you can, the interactive tools that you all were using and answering questions on are right here under activities. Okay, so you have quizzes and games or discussions. So I'll start with discussion. The last question I asked you about your biggest takeaway, that was called a collaborate board. Okay, you can create polls like, you know, I think one of the questions said the X one. That was a poll, I believe, open-ended. Okay, those are just questions, and people, the students can write their answers, or you know, let me click collaborate board just so you can see how it looks. When you click add, this is the blank slate. Okay, and then you put the topic, you put the description, and then you add the little image. You can even record your voice as directions. So if we're teaching the little kids, right, and they want to hear the question, you can always record yourself asking the questions so your students can hear it. You can put a video of you explaining what your expectations are, and then, you know, you click save. I'm just going to put test. And then it's done. So it's very user-friendly. Now I have the collaborate board. I'm going to go ahead and add new. I'm just going to click quizzes and games. You can put a quiz here. So correct answer, incorrect answer, draw it. Remember when you guys circled, or I showed you how we circle? That was the draw it one. So I'm going to go ahead and hit draw. And then you put your question here, maybe like circle, I don't know, where you are today. I don't know. And you can upload an image. This is where I uploaded my image. You can search by Google. So if you don't have an image on your computer, what's really cool about Nearpod, it has Google embedded. So you don't have to save pictures or take screenshots. You can just search. So maybe we can do like a scale. Oh, that's not the type of scale I wanted. But you know, this is just a simple Google search. I should have put education scale. And then you put the image there. So let's maybe put map. And then maybe we can put here. Okay, and then you can make it bigger. And then this is what your students will see with your directions. You can add a background. Oh, this is what I should have done. I should have added a background, not just an image. So that's, you know, how you can create those. One last one I'll share that I've done before. You can do matching. Time to climb is like Kahoot. If you've done Kahoot before and you like Kahoot, time to climb is exactly like Kahoot. So it's helpful. Matching pairs, memory tests, so lots of interesting ways of doing it, and it's very, very easy to create. And all you have to do is click save and exit, and then it's saved right here. And when it's saving, and when you're ready to teach your class, I usually do live participation. Like right now, we are live. So I click live participation and it will send you, here's the link, for example, for this one, it'll send you a code. So that's how I share it with you. If you teach online, that, you know, you're not doing it face-to-face and you just want to send it to student, maybe as homework, you just click student paste. So that means students do it on their own time. And I know a lot of teachers use it as a tool for homework. And you tell them like, when is it valid from? What's the due date? And then you just send it to your students as a link, and you know, they do it and you get the data immediately. Okay. Are there any questions? And is there anything I can answer? Dr. Nasser said we use it when we want to celebrate an event where students can share their thoughts or experiences about the event. Absolutely. Sure, Khalida, I can quickly go ahead and share how to make a quiz. Let me delete. Okay, so some quizzes. You can do like this is a quiz. I'm gonna click add. And by the way, Nearpod is very helpful. They have lots of helpful videos to show you what it looks like and how to do it. It's great. So I click add. And then, type your question. I don't know. Let's do something easy. What is 1 + 4? Okay. And then some of the answers, let's say 5, let's say 3, let's say 2, let's say, I don't know, 7. And then you click which one is correct. And then you can always add an image. And then once you have that, you can add as many questions as you want. And then you hit save. Let me delete this one. And there it is. And then as a student, if you click preview, it'll show you how the students do it, how the students see it, excuse me. And so once this is how the student sees it, the quiz that we just created. And let's say the student got it wrong. And then just sorry, leave this out because it's just a preview. It doesn't let me. So once the student clicks next, it'll send you in the report how they did it. So the question was, how many students are allowed to enter for free? It's 50 students per session. So like per class, it allows 50. That's for the free version. What are my favorite activities you're using Nearpod? It depends. It depends on what I'm doing. It all goes back to like the learning goal. I can, these are, classes that I've actually taught. Let me quickly share. This is a class I just recently taught my college students, which was teaching geometry. So it was, let's see, I like to do these types of questions a lot where students drag and drop. Like they share, like I have for this specific one, it was, they have to put something in order. So they drag and drop in order. I like those. I like the interactive ones more so than the quizzes. Like just because, it's more interactive. But the quizzes are very helpful for you to get the data. Like the reports that you get from Nearpod are very, very helpful. So let me quickly, this is, the last thing I'll say about Nearpod. This is a college math class that I taught. So let me see. I just want to show you the report of one of them. So if I click here, maybe. So once your students answer, what I love about Nearpod is it creates these wonderful reports that that will tell you everything about the students. Look, what they answered, how much they participated, and sorry, I don't know why the PDF isn't opening, but what I was saying is they tell you so much about the students and how they did. They break it down by question, what they answered, what they got right, what they got wrong. And it actually does a lot of data analysis for you. Okay. So it's very helpful in that sense of getting numbers and percents for assessment purposes. Exactly. You can always present your lessons using Nearpod. You can add slides. So just like over here, I have all my slides in Microsoft PowerPoint. I can take them and just put all of them on Nearpod. So you don't even have to switch between PowerPoint and Nearpod. Okay. Let's go ahead and continue because I just got the notification that we have a little bit less than 15 minutes. So I want to make sure we get to, some of the last part of our session today. And the last part of our session today is that the discussions, the productive discussions. So it's not always about, the content. Yes, I mean, I love mathematics. If you teach mathematics, you probably think it's the best thing in the world. If you teach history, you think it's the best thing in the world. If you teach physics, English, as teachers, we like the content that we teach, but sometimes we have to step back and remind ourselves it's not just about the content. When we're teaching, it's not just about math. It's not just about history, Arabic, English. It's not just about that. We want our students to be active learners of the content, but we also want them to develop practices and skills that they will use throughout their life, like metacognitive skills, the reflection skills we talked about earlier. And really, what I think is one of the most important skills we should teach our students is communication. And that's where productive discussions come in. And that's going to be this part of the last part of our talk, which is productive discussions. And the role of communication is critical. Communication, no matter what you teach, is going to be the central part of whether students really understand it or not. It's a way of sharing ideas, if it's a way of clarifying understanding, because when students talk about it, why something works, what they're doing is their ideas, it lets them reflect on it. It lets them refine it, discussing, change. So by simply communicating it out loud, those ideas become a lot more powerful. So the communication process also helps build meaning and prominence for ideas by making them public, right? So sometimes when I talk to teachers or when I'm teaching myself, what I hear is when I teach it in class, they get it. And then they go home and then the test comes and they forget it. So there is no permanence. It doesn't stay with them. So one way we can help with that is through communication, having students talk about it, having students verbally or writing, no matter what the content is. Okay, but this is hard. Okay, how can we improve our skills in orchestrating those productive discussions? How can we help our students communicate? What is our role as instructors? I'm not going to do this on Nearpod because we're short on time. It's really, really hard. And there's a reason it's hard. There's been a lot of research in education that shows the reason communication, productive, I have to say, it has to be productive communication in the classroom is hard because let's be honest, students can talk to each other about anything, but is it productive? That's where the challenge comes in. Is it related to the content and the learning? That's why it's where it becomes a challenge. The reason it's a challenge is because for us as teachers, as instructors, it requires a skillful improvisation. So as the students are talking, as teachers, we have to interpret, we have to synthesize right away, right? We don't have time to really think about it and plan it ahead of time while we're having a live discussion. So it takes a lot of skill. And there's also some lack of familiarity. Sometimes, we don't have the experience in doing it. It's not how I learned when I went to school. So I don't have that experience of how do I do it in my classroom? Sometimes teachers worry that if students talk, I'm not going to have control over my classroom. Again, as teachers, we have to, have those quick split-second decisions. It requires really deep and flexible knowledge of everything that we use in the classroom, like content, pedagogy, and our students. So that's why it's hard. So if you find having those productive discussions hard, you're not the only one. They are hard because they require so much from the teacher. So a helpful tool that I have used when preparing lessons, when preparing the specific workshop that we're engaging in right now, this tool, it's called the 5 practices for orchestrating discussions. So it simplifies all those challenges that we talked about. It lets you plan ahead of time. So that way, when you have that live discussion, it becomes a little bit easier, a little bit, not a lot easier, just a little bit. So here it is. These are the 5 practicing for orchestrating productive discussions. And this is based on the work of Smith and Stein. Those are researchers, those are math researchers, but their work is used across the content, so it's not math specific. So it's when us as teachers, before we deliver a lesson, before we have discussions in the classroom, we're anticipating, we're monitoring, we're selecting, sequencing, and connecting. And I'm going to talk about each one in a little bit. But before, I have to add one from me. The researchers only have 5, and I don't want to change it, so I'll call it 5+. And the 0 stage has to be at the beginning, which is setting goals and selecting a task. Okay, so what is the goal? And I know some of you, one person asked, I don't remember the name, in chat, what is your favorite tool on Nearpod? And my answer was, it depends on what I'm trying to do. That should always be the question you ask yourself. What is the goal, right? So I'm not sharing resources just to show, like for this specific workshop, all the resources that I know. I had a goal for, creating, communication, reflection. So I picked specific things that I wanted to talk about. So having a goal lets you have control. So if you worry about the control, if you have a goal set, that should really drive the rest of the process. And another thing I changed, I know the researchers may not be very happy with me because I kind of changed their work a little bit. Instead of it being linear, I like it to be more of a cycle. I like it to really look like a circle. So because everything feeds on it. So we anticipate students, so we set the goal. 1, we set the goal. 2, we think about what might students answer. So we're anticipating their answers. Before this workshop, when I thought of my questions, I anticipated what some of you would answer, because then that takes away the surprise, like when somebody says something, right? Then as you monitor your students' work. So as they're doing it, you walk around, you look at Nearpod, you look at the chat, then you select specific work that you want to share out loud. Okay, then we sequence. Which one am I going to say first? Which one am I going to say next? Which one am I going to say last? And then lastly is the connection. How do I connect everything to the learning goal that I had? So that's how we don't have time for the video, unfortunately. I had a video to show this done in the classroom, but I'll send it in chat. And then some of the things that teachers do and some of the things that students do, I do want to leave a little bit of time. All of this is going to be in the file I'll send in here. Okay. And I have another, like I use this tool. It's like a worksheet I fill out for some of the lessons that I deliver. But I do want to make sure we have at least 1 or 2 minutes before the time ends. These were my goals. I'll put this up here. I want to leave you with, if you want to create an active learning environment where your students are actively engaged in learning, you have to form those connections for your students to form trust with you and with each other, so they're comfortable in the productive discussions. And once we have those 2, then the active learning community becomes possible. Okay, so we started our session with this quote: "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, but if you involve me, that's how I learn." So I hope that is one of the takeaways that you have from this workshop. Thank you all so much for your engagement, and I will send the PDF file here in chat.
Thank you, Dr. Eileen, for your great and amazing session today. Thank you very much, Eileen. So in conclusion of this session, of this special workshop at the Queen Rania Academy Forum for Teacher Training to 2023, we would like to express our deep thanks for our presenter and to all of you for your effective and inspiring participation. We hope that this meeting has added value to your ideas and educational skills. We remind you that you will receive your certificate of attendance by email the email you wrote in your registration form. And we urge you to fill out the feedback survey. We have it in the chat box, which will help us to improve and develop our future experiences. We look forward to seeing you at QRTA's future events. All of you, especially Dr. Eileen, inshallah.